You ever stand in front of someone who's already decided who you are before you even open your mouth? That's how it started. I was 12, standing in this towering courtroom in downtown Philly, staring up at a judge who looked like he'd rather be at the golf course than wasting time on some poor black kid from the South Side. He leaned back in that tall leather chair, squinted at me over his glasses, and said, "Son, your mother's guilty. Nothing you say's gonna change that." Now, most kids would have crumbled right there. Hell, I almost did. But see, what he didn't know was the beat-up composition notebook I had clutched in my hands. That little thing had pages full of dates, statements, precedent rulings, and a plan to burn the whole damn lie down. My name's Elijah Brooks. My mom, Darlene, was the hardest working person I've ever known. She raised me on her own, worked long shifts as a legal secretary at this fancy law firm Stonebridge and Myers, one of those places with glass walls, $40 coffee, and not a soul that looked like us in the partner wing. She never missed a day, never raised her voice, always carried herself with dignity, even when her boss, Gregory Fields, treated her like wallpaper. You know the type: white, Yale-educated, inherited his daddy's network and his granddaddy's temper. Everything went to hell the day some high-value merger files went missing. Suddenly, there was talk of corporate espionage, lawsuits, insider trading. And like clockwork, Gregory pointed fingers at the only person in the office without a law degree or country club membership: me mom. "She's always hanging around the file room," he told them. "Always stays late. I've noticed things." That's all it took. The next morning, police kicked in our door while I was brushing my teeth. Guns drawn, yelling, stomping through our little apartment like it was a cartel hideout. They tore apart photo albums, dumped drawers, shattered the frame that held my mom's college diploma from Temple. And when they handcuffed her, she still looked me dead in the eye and said, "Call Aunt Raina, baby. Stay safe." I watched her disappear into the back of a squad car, and something inside me cracked clean down the middle. They gave her a public defender who looked like she hadn't slept in a week, called her a mess. Brown, twice before realizing her name was Darlene, and told her flat out, "Best we can do is a plea deal. 3 to 5 years if you're lucky." That's when I decided it wasn't letting them bury her without a fight. Now, I ain't gonna lie. I didn't know squat about law back then, but I knew how to read. I knew how to ask questions, and I damn sure knew when someone was lying to my face. So while other kids spent their summer break riding bikes or sneaking into movies, I was parked in the third-floor law section of the main city library, flipping through dusty legal textbooks bigger than my torso. That's where I met MS Alvarez, a librarian with a strict bun and eyes like she could see your soul. She didn't say much at first, just watched me struggle to lift case law binders onto the table. On the third day, she brought me a granola bar and said, "You studying for the bar exam or plotting something bigger?" When I told her what happened, she nodded slowly and said, "My uncle did time for something he didn't do. System's rigged. But if you're going to take it on, I'll help." From there, things moved fast. I started mapping out everything: who was where, what time the files were discovered, who had access. Turns out Gregory had a lot more to hide than he let on. Debt, failed business ventures, payments to sketchy consultants. The man was drowning in red ink under all that designer cologne. But I needed proof. So one night, I went to my mom's office building. That place looked like it could swallow you whole. I waited outside, hoping Simonianian might recognize me. And sure enough, old Mr. Redmond, the janitor, stepped out for a smoke and said, "You Darlene's boy? Come on, back way. Cameras don't cover the freight entrance." Inside, he told me something that made my blood run cold. I saw Fields with those files the night before everything went down. He looked jumpy, stuffed them in his briefcase, told me to mind my business. I begged him to come forward. He looked me in the eye and said, "Son, I got a record. 30 years old, but it still follows me like a damn ghost. You think they'll believe me over a white lawyer with a Harvard crest on his wall?" I couldn't argue, but I didn't give up. I tried to tell my mom's lawyer. Waited hours outside legal aid. When she finally came out, she brushed me off like lint on her sleeve. Told me she didn't have time for kids playing detective. That's when I realized nobody was coming. Nobody. Unless I made them. So I studied harder. Found a community law workshop in North Philly where law students practiced on mock cases. That's where I met Terrence Spigg, cocky law student from Columbia who thought I was just another lost kid. But when I rattled off citations from Hudson v. Michigan and Illinois v. Gates, his eyebrows hit the ceiling. "You're not normal," he said. "No," I said. "I'm desperate." From that day on, Terrence became my unofficial coach. And when my mom's hearing came around, I slipped in behind a group of law students to watch. The courtroom looked exactly like I imagined, and nothing like I hoped. Cold. Impersonal. The judge, same one from earlier. Harmon sat high like a king over peasants. And there was my mom, in an orange jumpsuit, cuffed and quiet. Her lawyer didn't argue, didn't object, just nodded like a bobblehead. So I stood up. "Your Honor," I said, voice cracking but loud. "There are procedural violations in this case." He slammed his gavel like thunder. "Who let this child in here?" But I didn't back down. I cited legal codes, explained the improper search, the planted evidence, the absence of probable cause. And for the first time, Harmon shut up. The room fell dead silent. That moment went viral. A court reporter shared it with her producer roommate, and next thing I knew, the evening news was calling me the 12-year-old legal prodigy. Then came help I didn't expect. Terrence brought in his uncle, retired Judge Tompkins, a legal legend who used to teach at Penn. Said he hadn't taken on a case in 10 years, but something about this boy makes me want to get back in the ring. We also got Rebecca, journalist with fire in her belly who had been investigating Judge Harmon for years, and Elena, a former clerk of the judge who had seen way too much and finally decided to talk. Together, we formed a team. I called it the Kitchen Table Crew, 'cause we met around Professor Tompkins' creaky old table, surrounded by coffee, folders, and more passion than sleep. We found dirt. Real dirt. Rebecca dug into Gregory's finances. Turns out, he'd been stealing from client accounts to fund a failing real estate deal. Elena showed us how Harmon tipped off prosecutors with hand signals during trial. We even uncovered deleted security footage that, suspiciously, only disappeared from the night in question. But the real smoking gun? Walter the janitor had secretly recorded Gregory sneaking into my mom's office with gloves on, slipping files into her drawer. It was grainy, shaky, but it was real. Problem was, he vanished. Spooked after his apartment got ransacked and someone threatened his grandkids. I thought we'd lost everything. But we found him hiding at his sister's house in South Jersey, scared out of his mind. Professor Tompkins promised to keep his family safe, and Walter agreed to testify. When trial day came, I walked into that courtroom wearing my only suit, sweat sticking to my back. Mom looked exhausted but held my hand. When her lawyer quit mid-trial, scared off by the judge, I stood up again. "Your Honor," I said, "I request to represent my mother under Article 478, based on exceptional circumstance." He smirked, laughed in my face, but he allowed it. And that's when everything changed. I cross-examined Gregory, exposed contradictions in his timeline, presented access logs, discredited his entire story. I brought up Walter, who told his truth, trembling but firm. I showed metadata inconsistencies in the fake emails the DA had conjured up. And when the judge tried to call a mistrial to bury it all, I quoted Arizona v. Washington and shut that door tight. Then, I pulled out my final move. Rebecca had recorded a secret meeting between Harmon, the DA, and Gregory conspiring to fake evidence and make sure the kid doesn't win. I played it. Loud. For everyone. Judge Harmon went pale. Called for bailiffs. Screamed. But it was too late. That audio was legal. And it was damning. The courtroom exploded. Judicial review officers stormed in. Harmon was suspended. Charges dropped. My mom walked free. We hugged outside that courthouse like survivors of a war nobody knew we were fighting. Now I'm older. I've seen how broken the system is. But I've also seen what happens when you refuse to kneel, when you learn their rules, and then beat them at their own game. So let me ask you something. If your whole world turned on a lie, would you be brave enough to stand up? Drop a comment below. 1, if you think I did the right thing. 2, if you think I should have stayed out of it. I want to hear your take because justice ain't just a system. It's a fight. One we all gotta choose to join. And if this story lit a fire and you share it, subscribe. Let's keep telling the stories they don't want told.